This NHL offseason has already started out with a bang, with all the rumor mills circling around Jason Robertson. After the sad, disappointing playoff exit against Edmonton, the Stars are in a weird spot heading into this offseason, as currently the team with the least amount of cap space this summer. And that has made things especially complicated for a team that has multiple pretty big free agents like Jamie Benn, Matt Duchene, and Maverick Bourque. Cap space has been a big topic of contention, and it seems like we might see some pretty big casualties because of it, and potentially Jason Robertson in the end. So, what is happening right now with Jason Robertson and a potential trade? How likely is it? What could it look like? And why is it happening? Well, make sure you watch till the end as we go through all the trade rumors here today, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this, as we cover every major trade this summer, which it's looking like there'll be quite a few. Now, I will say, if the Stars lost in round 2, I wouldn't have been all that surprised if Jason Robertson was on the block, because before that point, the playoff performance was pretty rough, and he's somebody that making $7.75 million will be a pending UFA after next season. So it's going to be one of the most interesting contract situations as Dallas looks to maneuver around the cap. But this is somebody that, even though I don't think is going to get back to the 109-point type of plateau, I think he's still one of the best and more underrated wingers out there in terms of the two-way game that he has and the opportunistic scoring he provides. Sure, the skating is an issue, but he's just so smart with how he positions himself that more often than not, he can get away with it, and he gets away with it pretty well. I mean, in the last 4 seasons, he's only had 1 year where he's been below 30 goals, and even though he's dipped down in terms of his production, still, he's a 80-point type of forward, and those guys are still extremely valuable. Plus, in terms of the playoff performances, Robertson has proved to be one of the Stars' most consistent players and forwards. I mean, before round 3, it was a bit of an issue, but he was also getting back to health, so that was something that I think was nagging against him. But you can see over the past 3 seasons, especially in the points department, the last 2 years before this, 18 points in 19 games and 16 points in 19 games. This last year, especially against Edmonton, was one of the only players actually performing up to their level of standard, and I think that's worth considering, especially considering how bad the Stars have been in back-to-back Western Conference Finals. Robertson has really been the only player that I think has consistently been great in all 3 of them. Really, out of a lot of the top-end Stars, he was one of the players that I would consider trading the least at this point, considering how good he's been late into playoff runs. That's something the Stars have obviously lacked. They obviously lacked versus Edmonton especially, and Robertson has proved himself to be at that different type of level. There's options here for the Stars team, but I get it. He's going to be a pending RFA after next year. I understand there's concerns there, but he's an RFA still. He's still somebody you control, and I still think is worth taking the bet on. But of course, with the very controversial end to the season, we've heard a lot about how Dallas is going to be proceeding going forward. One of the parts we saw was coming from Jeff Merrick talking about a potential Robertson trade, and the reasoning behind that, saying a lot of people are saying the Stars are thinking of making Jason Robertson available to trade to create cap space, flexibility, and reacquire draft capital. Now, to me, I just don't think this is true. I'm not trying to say that Jeff Merrick is a liar or anything, but it just feels strange to me for the Stars at this point to be a team that needs to have draft capital specifically. I mean, flexibility, sure, I guess, but who are you going out to acquire that's better than Jason Robertson? There's not many guys out there that are purely better, and that's why I think in most cases for the Stars especially, who need to get better, especially in goal scoring late in the playoffs, you're not going to get better trading it. But draft capital, I don't really understand that aspect to it, because I don't think the Stars have proved whatsoever that they need big first-round picks to get the value they need. I mean, they've done well with their first-round picks, obviously. The Ottingers, Harleys, Miro Heiskanens, Jason Robertsons, of course. But after the first round, you got players like Logan Stankoven, who they later had so much value with, they were able to trade them away for Mikko Rantanen. So I don't think it's a need for this Stars team, especially with how good this scouting staff is, to have big time first round picks, to have this wealth of draft capital, especially with the position the Stars are in. Why do you need draft picks? You don't. You're gonna go for draft picks, but also have Maverick Bourque, who you drafted in the first round, who's looking like a future middle 6 forward for you, potentially go and get offer sheeted by another team. I just don't understand the reasoning here, because I think there is ways to get out of it. Personally, for me, if I'm the Stars team, I'm using as much draft capital to get out of this situation, using the draft capital I have to trade the anchor contracts they unfortunately signed. If you're trying to get rid of some cap, I mean, there are a lot of ways to do it. I mean, you got Mason Marchment at 4.5 million, who's a UFA after this year, which I get it. Mason Marchment, I think regular season wise especially, is pretty good for $4.5 million. And the passion he has for the game is obviously great, but he's just too costly of a player at too many times. He's really, I think, pretty stupid in the playoffs at points, taking mindless penalties that do not get you anywhere. So to me, if I'm trading any forward in this group immediately, it's Mason Marchment. I mean, not even a question in my opinion. Even though Marchment does have a 10-team no trade list, I still think 2/3 of the league would be very interested in a player like Marchment who can bring the passion he has for the ice, the physicality he provides. Even though at this point I think I've soured on him, especially his finishing ability, I still think he has pretty good value out there, which putting up $4.5 million off the books would be crucial to the team, especially in potentially signing Maverick Bourque, who I think should be one of the Stars' priorities, but likely isn't. I think rather it's going to be Duchesne Ben they're trying to re-sign, which I don't think should be the case, but I digress. Plus, I don't even need to tell you that the astronomical L that has been the Matt Dumba and Ilya Lyubushkin contracts need to go. I mean, I think Marchment you could trade potentially for a couple picks in the end, but let's be honest, you're probably going to repackage those picks to trade away Dumba and Lyubushkin's contracts. But honestly, they should, because they are absolute albatrosses, especially Dumba, who's making $3.7 million, has been an absolute failure in so many points throughout the season, and wasn't even playing in the playoffs, which for a player that's supposed to be this physical defensive defenseman is where you want to have him play. But he wasn't even good enough to do that. He was outplayed immediately by Alex Petrovic, and then Lyubushkin was outplayed by Alex Petrovic. I mean, what are we doing here? Lyubushkin especially makes $3.25 million for this year and next, and I thought he was okay in the regular season, actually. I thought he did a decent job, but in the playoffs, he was nowhere near what he needed to be, and was just getting outclassed by the speed of different teams. You cannot have that same situation happen, and the only way I would ever want to see a Jason Robertson trade is if you trade him to fix that issue. If you trade him alongside a Lyubushkin or Dumba contract to get a top pair right D that can play with Miro Heiskanen, can make that defense a lot more comfortable, that's what I'd want to see. If anything happens, trade for an actual need. Don't trade Jason Robertson to get an extra first round pick. Who the heck cares? And hey, I think you're going to need to trade him anyways, because you got Thomas Harley coming up as an RFA after this next year, and he's obviously going to command a pretty big payday, so you're not exactly going to get away with it even then. That's why I said at the time that both of these contracts were such a mistake, because you had these core players that still needed deals to come. And sure, you wanted to fix some issues, but the Stars did it in such a boneheaded way, in my opinion. It's one of the rare, I think, pretty massive L's that Jim Nill has taken in his tenure, especially recently. One of the most glaring mistakes that very obviously was going to come back to bite them. The good news is that by the time Jason Robertson is actually an RFA, the Stars do have quite a bit of cap space to work with at $35 million. Still one of the teams with the least amount of cap space that year, but it is something to work with. Plus, I think after next season, there's a pretty strong likelihood the Stars might buy out Tyler Seguin's last deal of the contract. Maybe that's something they look towards potentially, but that would certainly free up quite a bit of cap space for them for the now, which I think is something the Stars might look to do. And at that point, I think it's pretty possible you'll have the money for Jason Robertson. So that's why I don't quite see the argument of opening up cap space unless they really need to sign Jamie Benn to a $7.7 million deal or something crazy like that. I don't think you need it now. To me personally, I don't think you need to sign any of these free agents. Duchesne, Ben especially, I'm fine with letting both of them go. Duchesne and Ben both were just complete non-factors in the playoffs, especially Duchesne, who even though was creating a lot of chances, my goodness, the finishing of him and Marchment was some of the worst I've ever seen in my life. To me, it's pretty easy to see just a player like Wyatt Johnston potentially just coming into that second line center spot and replacing Duchesne at that point. If you're going to trade a player like Mason Marchment for potentially another forward in the middle six, then maybe that's able to open up some space. But you also got a player like Maverick Bourque, who I think could step into a pretty similar role of a Jamie Benn, obviously not in terms of the captaincy, the physicality, but in terms of how many minutes they play. And I just think for the Stars, there's ways to get out of this situation, ways to be patient as well, because I think Jason Robertson is a player that would be a mistake to trade now. Even though you want draft capital or something, I don't think that's a priority for the Stars in all honesty. Now, if we do see a Jason Robertson trade, we actually got a couple of teams from Jeff Merrick that could potentially be in the race for Robertson, saying if the Stars are willing to list on Robertson, the Senators and Ducks are teams to watch. And this is pretty interesting. I mean, the Senators do not surprise me whatsoever. That's a team that I think has always been interested in a player like Jason Robertson. Anaheim, though, as Jason Robertson, of course, is a SoCal kid, will be a pretty fun fit. Obviously, I don't want to see a trade, but these two I think would make sense. But again, going back to the defensive conversation here, if there's anything I think the Stars trade Jason Robertson for, it's for a right defenseman. I don't think it's for flexibility or a draft capital. I don't see that actually being the case, or at least maybe I'm coping. Maybe I'm coping at this point, but I think it would be for a premium right defenseman. The Senators, unfortunately, don't quite have that. They do have a plethora of lefty, and maybe Thomas Chabot would have been a potential player if a Thomas Harley didn't exist, but of course, he does exist and is pretty prominent for the Stars. On the right side, I mean, I like Nick Jensen. I think he's solid, but I don't think he's the type of defenseman that you're really trying to acquire in a Robertson trade. I have seen some people also talk about a potential Drake Batherson swap, and I would have said a few months ago that that could definitely be the case, but I think at this point, the Senators want to keep a player like Batherson, especially at the low cap hit he has for his production. He's been one of the bigger success stories for the Senators, especially over the past couple of years. And yes, I think Robertson would be an upgrade, but I mean, cap situation-wise, Robertson would command a hefty payday from the Senators, and I don't know if they're in quite the position to be able to give that to him. And at the same time, even though I think Batherson would be a pretty good fit for the Stars, especially needing some more speed, I just don't think it's realistic from the Senators' perspective unless the offer absolutely blows them away, unless it's Robertson for Batherson straight up, but I don't think it's going to be that. Anaheim was the other team mentioned, and again, this is another tough one because they have great lefty like Jackson Lacombe, Olin Zellweger, Pavel Mintyukov, all three guys I would love to have on this Stars team, but they're all left defensemen, and I just don't think that's the fit for what the Stars want right now, especially on the younger side. I think if they're going to want to trade for somebody, they're going to want to trade for somebody in their prime, which also eliminates, I would say, Radko Gudas, even though I like him a lot physically and defensively. He's way past his prime at this point. Jacob Trouba, don't even think about it, okay? Jim, if you don't do it. But again, this is why I think it's so difficult to even talk about a Robertson trade, because I just don't think there are many great fits out there. Calgary is maybe one if the Stars really like Erasmus Anderson, and even though I'm not the biggest fan of his consistency, when he is at his top of his game, he can be a really interesting top four defenseman and somebody that is really electric. So maybe that's the type of defenseman the Stars want to go after. I think Calgary could be a pretty good fit as well in terms of the teams that could want to play like Jason Robertson and the goal scoring he provides. But I think there's very few teams out there that really make complete sense. The Kings are another team I could see potentially being the race. I think getting a player like Robertson would be very fascinating, even though I think they could still use some more speed. Robertson's goal scoring ability would be really interesting on that Kings team. On the right side, I do like Jordan Spence a lot. I like Brant Clark, but I don't quite see that being a perfect fit for the Stars that want, again, a more experienced defenseman coming back. I like both of those two, and I would happily take them on the Stars, but I think especially considering the Niels Lundqvist fiasco, I think for them, straying away from the younger side, the unproven side, is something they would want to do. So again, unless it's a Drew Doughty, which I, of course, don't see happening, it seems like that might also not be a great fit. I will say, going through the teams, I think Seattle actually might be a really interesting fit for one of Adam Larsson. That, to me, is, I think, one of the only players the Stars would want to trade in a potential Jason Robertson swap. Plus, for the Kraken, they do have some good left wing options. Jared McCann, of course, Jaden Schwartz. There's nothing that's at a superstar level that Jason Robertson can be. Plus, I think for the Kraken, getting a premier goal scorer like that on a team with a lot of playmakers would be, I think, the greatest move for them personally. I think they need more star power. Jason Robertson would certainly do that. It would make their defense quite a bit worse, I would say. Larsson has been as dependable as you can get out there, but that's why I think the Stars would actually benefit from him so much. And I think the cap hit as well is pretty reasonable. In Larsson's case, he makes $5.25 million for the next 4 seasons, which is a little bit steep in terms of the term, but the AAV is where I think you're getting a lot of value there. And I think for what Larsson provides, for the player he is, that's, I mean, exactly what you want. I think Larsson's pretty much just the right D version of Esa Lindell, but just having that ability, having that defensive acumen, I think would be pretty perfect for them. I would maybe want another puck mover brought onto the defense if you're going to trade both Dumba and Lyubushkin, but I think it's a start. So maybe Seattle as a fib. Who knows? All in all, though, I just don't quite see a Jason Robertson trade happening, at least this offseason. Maybe the Stars feel like they've gotten their hand forced, but I feel like Jim Nill would be at a stupid level to have not seen this situation coming. So I feel like the Stars had to prepare in some way for this, which is why I think a trade, if it were to happen, is a lot more likely next offseason when Jason Robertson is an RFA, when the Stars still have his rights, but there might be some contract negotiation problems happening by then. Maybe that's a possibility, but I think that's the earliest that we see a Robertson deal happen. I don't think the Stars are in a position to be all too hasty as of yet, but things, of course, can change and will change. Let me know your thoughts down below, though, on this whole Jason Robertson situation. Do you think he gets dealt, and what do you think he gets dealt for? Let me know your thoughts down below, and which team do you think ultimately will be the team to end up trading for him? A lot to talk about there that I want to know your thoughts on. Of course, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and the notification bell for all the help in the channel. It helps quite a bit showing your support, and thank you guys so much for that. Of course, if you want to watch some more videos, you can click on this card right here for all my trade number content right in one playlist all throughout the years. Plus, if you want to share the video for your friends, especially everybody that is tapped into the trade rumors, that would help quite a bit as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, though, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic hockey day, and goodbye.